The Razzies. Now here is an award show you don't hear me talk about much on the channel. I'm not a big fan of the Razzies. I don't really like award organizations that focus on the worst of the year, especially when it comes to art, to filmmaking. Like, it's really hard to make a movie. I made lots of short films when I was younger, and so many things have to come together. You have tons of people working really hard, long hours. Nobody sets out to make a bad film. Sometimes they happen, and then there's the Razzies waiting for you after all the bad reviews have come and gone and the poor performance at the box office. The Razzies are there to give you one more kick in the ass at the beginning of the following year. It's kind of crazy to think that this organization goes all the way back to the early 1980s. If you go on Wikipedia, you can look and see everything they awarded the Razzie going back to 1981. And here's the thing, most of the titles and performances you see, you probably won't even recognize, especially when it comes to the 80s. And there's also lots of titles on there most people would agree are terrible, but in more than 40 years of the Razzie Awards, there have been a select group of nominations that are just so unfair, so idiotic. Not necessarily nominations that are Oscar-worthy, but certainly not Razzie-worthy. In this first ever Razzie Top 10 video, I'm going to single out the performances I believe should never have been nominated for a Razzie, and I think even some of them were worthy of an Academy Award nomination. What do I think are 10 good performances that were unfairly recognized at the Razzies? Here we go. Number 10, Sandra Bullock, Demolition Man.
Simon Phoenix knows he has some competition. He's finally matched his meat. You really licked his ass.
So as I'm sure you know by now, if you've been watching the channel, Sandra Bullock is my favorite actress. I have questioned why she had to win an Oscar for The Blind Side, a performance I like, but I don't think was necessarily worthy of an Academy Award. I think her performance in Gravity was much better and more deserving of the gold trophy. She's had many good performances throughout the years, and yes, some bad ones. Honestly, two of my least favorite Bullock performances are Speed 2 Cruise Control and All About Steve. Her performance in Speed 2 earned her a Razzie nomination, and her performance in All About Steve famously earned her the Razzie win for Worst Actress the night before she won her Oscar for The Blind Side. Sandra Bullock actually showed up in person to accept her Razzie for All About Steve. As a huge Sandra Bullock fan, that was a wild weekend, let me tell you, seeing her win a Razzie and an Academy Award within about 24 hours of each other. It was a bit too much for me to handle, honestly. So yeah, I don't really like her performance in All About Steve. It's very annoying. But there is one performance she was nominated for a Razzie I don't think is bad at all. I actually really enjoy Sandra Bullock in Demolition Man, opposite Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone. That was her mini breakthrough performance a year before Speed. Bullock had been working in film and TV since the late 1980s. She had a pretty big role in Love Potion No. 9 from 1992, but that movie crashed and burned. Really, the movie that introduced the world to Bullock was Demolition Man. She's kind of the comic relief of the movie. There's that awkward sex scene, there's her silly little jokes, but as the movie goes on, she shows her strong side as well. She gets a couple really cool action movie moments at the end. Her performance in Demolition Man isn't half the performance she gives in Speed, but I think she's really effective and adorable in Demolition Man. She did not deserve that Razzie nomination. Number 9, Tom Cruise, War of the Worlds.
Want jelly on this sandwich?
I'm not hungry either.
You're not hungry either? Okay. Okay, it's fine.
Okay, so War of the Worlds from 2005 is not one of Tom Cruise's best movies. It's certainly not one of Steven Spielberg's best movies. It was perfectly fine, entertaining. I saw it opening weekend. I love some of those eerie early action scenes in the movie. So it is kind of middle of the road, I would say, for both Cruise and Spielberg, but I don't know of anyone who considered that a bad Tom Cruise performance. I think he is excellent in that movie, playing a father who doesn't really know what to do in the face of this global crisis, these aliens sprouting out from the ground and killing everybody. He's trying to protect his 2 kids in the best way he can. It's a very good performance that might not be Oscar worthy or anything, but it's certainly not in any way at the Razzie level. I think what happened here was that the Razzie organization responded not to the movie, not to Cruise's performance, but the publicity of War of the Worlds from the summer of 2005. Remember Tom Cruise jumping on Oprah's couch? That cringe-worthy interview with Matt Lauer, and just some of the things Cruise did and said on that publicity tour when he was just starting to date Katie Holmes. That is where I think this Razzie nomination came from. It was in no way based on the performance he gives in War of the Worlds, and so, like, what the hell? Why even nominate it in the first place? That is so totally stupid. Number 8, Amy Adams, Dear Evan Hansen.
I think it's time for you to go.
So many months after this movie came out and I'd heard nothing but horrific things, terrible things, I did finally watch Dear Evan Hansen, and I didn't hate it. It's okay. It's definitely a very flawed movie. Ben Platt's age is an issue, and the movie has some pacing problems. There's something kind of off about the whole endeavor, but it also was effective in scenes here and there. I thought the cast was pretty good. Julianne Moore has a couple good moments, and Amy Adams, I think, gives the best performance in the movie. It's a very grounded, emotional performance as she deals with intense grief at the loss of her son. I mean, it makes me kind of angry, honestly, the way Amy Adams in the last 5 years has become this punching bag because she hasn't picked the best roles in the best projects. Since her Oscar nomination for Vice in 2019, she hasn't really showed up in a great movie for a while, and so it's easy for an awards body like the Razzies to give her nominations left and right for all of these misfires. But no matter how flawed of a movie Dear Evan Hansen is, I think Amy Adams is giving a wonderful performance in that movie. I mean, I don't think it's at the level of an Oscar nomination or anything, but a Razzie nomination? Amy Adams and Dear Evan Hansen? No. Number 7, Whitney Houston, The Bodyguard.
So how's the new guy?
He's got white hair, Frank.
He's very good.
Yeah, but did you have to get me an old man?
You'll notice that there's a lot of women on this list, and hey, the Razzies, they love to attack women. They love to bring women down, especially in like debut performances, younger actors, big movie stars like Cameron Diaz and Jennifer Lopez, who may not make like the world's greatest movies, but just because they make kind of middle of the road entertainment, they have to be nominated year after year after year. Just look at how many nominations Jennifer Lopez has had at the Razzies. It's kind of ridiculous. But what amazes me is how they will pick on a debut performance in a movie that pretty much everybody liked. The Bodyguard in 1992 was a huge hit. That soundtrack sold like how many copies? The movie is not amazing by any means. I was too young to see it when it came out in 92. But I did check it out much later, and I liked the film. It's fine. I think the performances in it by Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston are adequate. Whitney Houston, in her first movie performance, has a lot of presence. And so, like, what the hell is with the Razzie nomination there? That is so ridiculous. I mean, Houston didn't make very many movies in her career, and you can point to something like a Razzie nomination for The Bodyguard that might have gotten under her skin. I don't know. She probably didn't think she was going to get an Oscar nomination, but like a Razzie nom for that performance in that movie, that very, very popular movie, that one doesn't sit right with me at all. Number 6, Heather Donahue, The Blair Witch Project.
I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them.
Okay, now this one really pisses me off because not only did Heather Donahue get a Razzie nomination for The Blair Witch Project, she actually won Worst Actress of 1999. Give me an effing break. Okay, so her performance in that film might not be at the level of a Meryl Streep or Jessica Lange or something. Fine. But Heather Donahue, an amateur at the time, is giving that performance her all. She is going for it. She is crying, she is screaming, and she is so effective in that movie, especially in the second half. Yes, you can kind of see she's new to acting. This is not like her 77th movie or anything. But I feel like her freshness, and that goes for the other two actors in the movie too, are what give that particular film its power. If like a well-known actress, a more highly trained, dramatic actress had played that role, I don't think the movie works at all. You need an amateur like Heather Donahue in that performance to really make that movie come alive. And so yeah, she's not going to get an Oscar nomination for that film, but a Razzie nomination and win? Hell no. Number 5. Faye Dunaway, Mommy Dearest.
What's wire hangers doing in this closet when I told you no wire hangers ever?
Yes, Faye Dunaway's performance at times is very over the top. That's what kind of makes the movie so entertaining, one you want to come back to over and over again. I'm a huge Joan Crawford fan, and every once in a while, I would say every 3 or 4 years, I want to put on Mommy Dearest again. It's not a very good movie, it's way too long, but the Faye Dunaway performance, oh my god. Yes, it's not very well modulated by the director. Dunaway should have been in better hands with that material, with that character, but no matter how good or bad that Dunaway performance is as Joan Crawford, you have to admit, it is very memorable. I don't think it's a great performance by any means, but it's definitely one of my favorites from Dunaway. It kind of killed her career at the time. I mean, the movie isn't very good, I will grant that. I don't know, I kind of adore this performance, honestly, and I don't think it should have gotten even close to Razzie recognition. Number 4, Ben Affleck, The Last Duel.
You say to me I am not the captain here!
I say to you whatever I like. I decide who's the captain at Bled.
Alright, we finally get to a second male on the list, and here is a performance I thought was a superb one, a movie that should have gotten into the Oscars, a film that should have done much better with critics, with audiences. I sadly did not see that one when it opened in theaters. I saw it later at home, and I thought this movie was excellent. I love the cast, the direction, the exciting action sequences. Jodie Comer is very good in the film. I think she was worthy of an Oscar nomination. I loved her performance in that. And then in supporting actor, I thought Ben Affleck gave one of his very best performances in his long career. He's got a funny haircut, I'll grant you that. Maybe that's what led to his Razzie nomination, I don't know. But The Last Duel is a movie that should have done a lot better. I would give it like an 8 out of 10. I think it's a really good film, and I like the performances, and I really dug that Ben Affleck performance. Why is he getting a Razzie nomination for that performance? It makes no sense to me. This movie is a hidden gem. If you haven't seen it, check out The Last Duel. Number 3, Shelley Duvall, The Shining.
I just want to go back to my room.
Why?
I'm very confused.
Alright, so I guess technically the Razzies rescinded the Shelley Duvall nomination last year or the year before, apparently because back in 1981 when they nominated her, they weren't aware of the things Stanley Kubrick did as the director. Like, obviously tensions were high on the set of The Shining between Shelley Duvall and Stanley Kubrick. Now, there's been different reports from different people. I believe in recent years, Duvall has said Kubrick did not mistreat her on that set, that they had a good working relationship, that he did the things he needed to do to get her to that emotional level, especially in the second half of the movie. I don't know if we'll ever know the whole story, but regardless of what happened, I think Shelley Duvall gives a very good performance in The Shining. Her levels of hysteria are believable. She's really sweet with her husband and her son in the movie's opening hour. The way she recognizes that her husband is slowly going mad is effective. And when she is seeing in the last half hour of the movie all of these horrendous things, I think she is performing at a very high level. I've always admired Shelley Duvall's performance in The Shining, which is one of my favorite horror films of all time. I think Kubrick got a director Razzie nomination too. I mean, it is just ludicrous. That is one of the all-time great movies. I think that movie should have been in the Oscar conversation in many categories. It absolutely should never have been nominated at the Razzies. Come on. Number 2, Danny DeVito, Batman Returns.
And we will snatch them, carry them into the sewer, and toss them into a deep, dark, watery grave.
So I've talked about a couple times on this channel that I think Michelle Pfeiffer should have received an Oscar nomination for playing Catwoman in Batman Returns, Tim Burton's 1992 sequel. I don't think DeVito's performance as the Penguin is quite at her level, but it is still an excellent villainous turn in the history of the Batman movies. It's one of the most memorable, one of the saddest. I mean, the job DeVito does through that heavy makeup is impressive, to say the least. He's so funny and dark and unpredictable. It is a great comic book performance. Why the hell was he nominated at the Razzies? I scratched my head over that one. Who in the committee that year was like, worst supporting actor? Danny DeVito, Batman Returns. It is a great performance, one of DeVito's best in his long career. It is not worthy at all of that Razzie nomination. Alright, before I get to my number one choice, a few runners up. Adam Sandler, Happy Gilmore. They love nominating Sandler for pretty much every movie he appears in. My favorite Sandler comedy by far is Happy Gilmore. Why did he get nominated for that one? Cher, Burlesque. Okay, so that's not a great movie, but it's very entertaining. I've probably watched it 6 or 7 times by now, and I like that performance by Cher. She has some nice emotional moments, some nice singing moments. I like that performance, it's fine. Katie Holmes, Batman Begins, like, what the hell? I think this one ties in with the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds Razzie nomination because they were dating. I think that's why she gets in here. I do prefer the Maggie Gyllenhaal performance in The Dark Knight. Katie Holmes gives a solid performance in Batman Begins. Betsy Palmer, Friday the 13th. I mean, okay, they really made some bad decisions that first year of the Razzies when it came to horror films. The Shining shouldn't be there, and Friday the 13th should not be there. That is a classic of the slasher movie genre, and I adore Betsy Palmer's performance in that third act. And Glenn Close, Hillbilly Elegy. Famously, I believe only one of 3 performances that were nominated at both the Oscars and the Razzies. I don't really like Hillbilly Elegy. It's definitely got some issues. But again, Glenn Close is giving that role her all. She really disappears into that character. I don't think that's worthy of a Razzie nomination at all, especially since she did ultimately get an Oscar nomination for the same performance. Alright, and that takes me to my number one choice. What do I think is the best performance unfairly nominated at the Razzies? This one was an easy call for me. It's Jennifer Lawrence in Mother.
Get out! Get out! All of you!
What happened?
They won't listen!
It's alright, we'll fix it.
I know a lot of people hated this movie, my parents included. I saw this movie opening weekend with my mom and dad, and they walked out of that theater so pissed off, like they didn't know what they had just watched, and whatever it was, they didn't like it. Mother is a very flawed film, but I found it to be very interesting and very well acted. It made my top 10 list of 2017. It doesn't all work, but there are moments of brilliance in that movie. I love the work of Darren Aronofsky, and he's going for something in Mother. I will always give a filmmaker points for doing something unusual and different, and that's what he gave us with Mother. It's a film I still think about here and there. Again, the performances by everybody in the film are very good. Michelle Pfeiffer, I think, does some of her best work of the last decade plus. Javier Bardem is solid, Ed Harris is really good, and then there's Jennifer Lawrence in the lead. I was so taken with her performance in this movie. I think it's better than a film she got an Oscar nomination for, Joy, a couple years before. It's a very unusual character. She has to react a lot of the movie, but I think she beautifully brings that character and this story to life in her performance. All throughout that movie, she is our viewpoint into this strange world. I think it's one of Jennifer Lawrence's better performances, and I wasn't even aware that she had received a Razzie nomination for Worst Actress until someone pointed it out to me online. I was like, what? Like, I knew she didn't get an Oscar nomination for that one. The movie didn't get anything at the Academy Awards, but I did not know that she got a Razzie nomination for that, and it makes me absolutely furious. It might not be the best performance of 2017, but she is giving everything in that role in Mother. I think she is astounding in that film. I love her performance in that. It should not even be mentioned in the same breath with the word Razzie. Jennifer Lawrence is a fantastic actress. I adore her work, and I especially love her performance in Mother. Her dazzling, emotional turn in Darren Aronofsky's film should have been considered for an Oscar nomination. A Razzie nomination? Seriously? Give me a mother effing break.